He walked among the faithful, his presence a quiet force in the echoing halls of the Vatican. For generations, Catholics had turned to the Hail Mary in times of desperation, murmuring the familiar prayer in hushed voices beside sickbeds, at gravesides, or hidden in candle-lit chapels. Now the world waited anxiously as Pope Leo stepped forward to reveal something never widely spoken, the precise number of Hail Marys to invoke in matters most urgent. His announcement spread like light, breaking a stormy dawn, stirring both hope and curiosity. At the center of his revelation was the belief that God, through the intercession of Mary, listens especially attentively when prayers spring from urgent need and steadfast faith. Pope Leo did not begin with stories of saints, nor with theological complexity. Instead, he spoke directly to those burdened with worry, a mother fearing for her child, a worker on the brink of poverty, a youth beset by fear. He made it clear that every soul is equal before God, that heaven turns no one away who calls and trusts. He explained that while the Hail Mary is always powerful, there are moments ordained by providence when a clear, purposeful act of supplication, using a certain number, serves as both a sign of trust and a channel for special grace. Leo's voice, steady with conviction, echoed the early church fathers' belief that focused prayer sharpens spiritual intent, aligning the heart with God's will. The number was neither arbitrary nor drawn from superstition. Pope Leo spoke of a tradition stretching back across centuries found in secret writings and the private counsel of holy men and women. The number is 7, he said 7 Hail Marys for urgent cases. Immediately, the number resonated through the crowd. 7, the biblical sign of completeness, the days of creation, the gifts of the Holy Spirit. He explained that this number offered with humility and perseverance mirrors the spiritual pattern woven into Scripture itself. Each Hail Mary, he taught, becomes a step along a sacred path, carrying the petitioner closer to the heart of the Virgin and through her to the merciful gaze of God. He gave urgent counsel. In times of crisis, do not approach prayer distractedly. Before beginning the 7 Hail Marys, he instructed pause. Offer your intention clearly to heaven. Name your need. Surrender it honestly. Trust in God's time and way. Leo described how intention shapes prayer, turning repetition into encounter. To simply recite words is not enough. To pray the 7 Hail Marys with intention is to lay one's anxieties at Mary's feet and to accept the possibility of miraculous change, yes, but also the grace to endure if God's answer comes in silence. He recounted moments throughout history when this practice brought remarkable results. There was the family in the shadow of war, sheltering in uncertainty and fear, who turned nightly to 7 Hail Marys with unwavering hope. When peace at last dawned, they would tell their neighbors that it was not merely politics or luck, but prayer that protected them. There was the child grievously ill with doctors despairing, and a mother who would not rest until she had finished her 7 Hail Marys. Beside the cradle, in time strength returned to the child, and the family remembered the night not by its terror, but by its lesson in faith. Pope Leo's teaching was both practical and profound. He instructed the faithful that the 7 Hail Marys could be prayed in any place, alone or with others, in silence or out loud, with candles or in the dark stillness of midnight. What mattered most was the unity of faith and heart, the willingness to persist, even when hope felt fragile. He addressed those tempted to abandon prayer out of impatience, reminding them that urgency does not guarantee immediate results. Sometimes, he said, the answer to the 7 Hail Marys is a change of circumstances. Often, it is the quiet hidden transformation of the soul, a newfound strength, a peace that endures courage in the face of trial. He urged families to make the 7 Hail Marys a habitual response to urgent needs, teaching children by example that nothing is too great or too small to bring before God through Mary's care. He emphasized that these prayers are not a mechanical formula, but a living dialogue. What is required is honesty, perseverance, and confidence in God's goodness. Those who come before heaven in humility, he continued, are never truly disappointed, no matter what they receive, for grace is always imparted in some form. He reminded the people that urgent need is not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to dependency on divine help. Pope Leo urged every listener not to feel shame in their desperation, for it is often in the grip of helplessness that hearts are opened most widely to God's intervention. Whenever a situation grew too heavy to bear a loved one's deep illness, rumor of war, financial ruin looming, or relationships torn by misunderstanding, they were to turn without delay or hesitation to the 7 Hail Marys. He taught that Mary's heart, so filled with maternal compassion, would recognize this cry and hasten to envelop each petitioner in her mantle. He cautioned them not to let the 7 Hail Marys erode into routine. Prayer, he said, is not meant to pacify anxiety by mere repetition, but to unlock trust. Each phrase, each Hail Mary, full of grace, should become a declaration of trust in God's ability to act, whether visibly or hiddenly. He spoke of a father whose urgent petitions for his son's return from addiction first seemed unanswered. But the nightly ritual of 7 Hail Marys, prayed with true surrender, slowly changed the man's heart from aching urgency to a peace that no outcome could steal. Months later, reconciliation began, not only between father and son, but within their larger family. He explained that the connection between the number 7 and urgent prayer was deeply scriptural. 7 days marked the completion of creation, the forging of a covenant, the sanctification of ordinary time by divine action. To pray 7 Hail Marys is to entrust one's crisis to the rhythm of God's own completeness. He called the faithful to see every Hail Mary not as a petition for magic, but as an act of faith, echoing the yes that Mary gave at the Annunciation. By following her example of trust, those praying joined their own small yes to the great yes of heaven. He addressed those whose urgent needs were secret, whose pain could not be voiced, even among family or friends. For these souls, Pope Leo offered comfort and a path. Bring your hidden trouble to 7 Hail Marys, speaking it only to God and the Blessed Mother. He spoke of souls who, struggling with temptation, guilt, or despair, found healing not because their situation vanished, but because grace helped them endure and move forward with courage. Leo affirmed that Mary, as Mother of Sorrows, knows well the quiet agony of waiting for answers that seem delayed, yet she never abandons those who turn to her with open hearts. He reminded all listeners that God's ways are not our ways. The answer to prayers, he maintained, was sometimes a direct and dramatic change, an illness cured, a debt paid, a danger averted. Other times, the answer came as strength and endurance, new resolve in the face of struggle, forgiveness where hurt had festered, or the opening of new pathways that could not have been foreseen at the moment of crisis. He told stories of entire communities who, facing disasters or decisions of national weight, gathered together and united their intentions in 7 Hail Marys, finding peace, clarity, and unexpected aid. Pope Leo highlighted the importance of unity in desperate situations. He urged families and faith communities, when torn by urgent trouble, set aside differences, gather at home or in church, and turn as one body to the practice of 7 Hail Marys for shared intention. He He described how unity multiplies the efficacy of prayer, creating ripples of grace that touch not only the petitioners, but their neighbors, their work, their cities. He encouraged a spirit of thanksgiving. Even while urged to bring their most desperate petitions to heaven, Pope Leo cautioned against using the 7 Hail Marys in a transactional way, as if God's grace were a prize to be won for perfect performance. Rather, after every session of 7 prayers, one should pause and thank God, whether the visible answer had come or not. Gratitude, he taught, is the surest sign of faith, the mark of a heart sustained by hope, rather than consumed by worry. Pope Leo continued to explain that persistence is the soul of urgent prayer. He spoke with clarity. Do not be discouraged if the answer to the 7 Hail Marys does not come immediately or in the way you expect. There may be times when, after making your intention known and faithfully praying, the 7 Hail Marys silence stretches on. He urged the faithful not to lose heart, insisting that waiting in prayer is not emptiness, but an invitation to trust a period during which God may be preparing heart circumstances or unexpected ways forward. He recalled a case where a young woman, gravely ill and given little hope by her doctors, saw her family gather each evening, sometimes for weeks, without visible change, their voices unwavering in the 7 Hail Marys. Over time, their hearts found strength to accept every outcome, and alongside their prayers came moments of deep peace, unexpected generosity among neighbors, and at last, a gradual recovery that defied ordinary explanation. He taught that often, the miracle arrives not simply in changed fortunes, but in the transformation of families and communities, drawn closer through shared reliance on prayer. Pope Leo addressed doubts too, for many wonder why a set number should make any difference. He clarified that the power lies not in superstition, but in obedience to a pattern seen throughout salvation history. By choosing 7, the petitioner joins the biblical rhythm of trust and completion, like marching around the walls of Jericho 7 times, or the 7 petitions of the Lord's Prayer. This discipline focuses the mind and heart, sharpening intent in a moment plagued by chaos or dread. He encouraged priests, catechists, and elders to lead by example. In times when their communities faced disaster, conflict, or spiritual desolation, they were to gather people and teach them the practice of the 7 Hail Marys. He recounted a parish racked by division, unable to reach consensus on vital decisions. When leaders turned to prayer, inviting everyone to unite in the 7 Hail Marys each evening for a week, hearts shifted, conversations softened, resolution emerged where only months of discord had stood. He also underscored the value of accompanying each session of 7 Hail Marys with acts of charity. Even while turning to heaven for help, he called the faithful not to withdraw from their earthly duties, but to let their hope overflow in service to others, a meal shared with a neighbor, a kind word to a stranger, generosity to those in greater need. This, he insisted, is the proof of genuine trust, asking for help from above while becoming a blessing below. He was not naive about the reality of disappointment. There would be times, he admitted, when prayers seemed to go unanswered, when urgency fades into grief, or circumstances do not change. In these moments, Leo reminded all that Christ himself prayed and accepted the Father's will, even in the hour of greatest agony. He insisted that in trusting Mary's intercession through the 7 Hail Marys, believers were choosing to imitate Christ's surrender, and so their hearts would not be left desolate. He offered special encouragement to those who pray alone. Many, he noted, suffer burdens hidden from view, parents laboring for children far from home, elderly souls bearing the weight of isolation, the young confronting fears they struggle to name. To each pope, Leo promised that not a single Hail Mary is prayed in vain. Each one echoes in heaven, attended by angels, bringing the petitioner closer to the heart of Mary and her Son. He concluded his message with reassurance for every searching soul. Pope Leo reminded the faithful that the act of praying 7 Hail Marys in urgent cases is both surrender and hope. It is a commitment to place not only one's petition, but one's heart into the care of Mary, who stands nearest to every crying child of God. He encouraged believers to return to the 7 Hail Marys each time new trials arise, knowing that no fatigue or repetition exhausts Mary's compassion or God's mercy. He emphasized that prayer's effects can sometimes pass unrecognized by human senses. Grace may enter a situation quietly changing attitudes, lightening burdens, or redirecting lives in ways not immediately obvious. He gave example after example, the spouse whose patience in hardship grew after weeks of nightly prayer, the worker whose despair was replaced by perseverance, families who, despite outward losses, found unity and consolation greater than their trials themselves. He asked his listeners to carry the conviction that their 7 Hail Marys were never wasted, even if the visible outcome differed from what they sought. Pope Leo called the Church to teach this practice as a legacy for future generations. He urged parents to inculcate it in their children, not as a last resort, but as a first response to fear and trouble. Schools, catechism classes, and small Christian communities, he insisted, should cherish and share the habit, building a culture that frames urgent challenges not in terms of anxiety and defeat, but of faith, hope, and enduring love. He wanted all to know that the 7 Hail Marys, prayed with trust and humility, create bonds across ages and continents, uniting believers in their dependence on mercy and their solidarity with all who suffer. He addressed the ultimate urgency, the moments when life hangs in the balance, or souls feel on the brink of despair. At such crossroads, Pope Leo pleaded, "Do not hesitate. Gather all the faith you possess, however fragile, and offer it through 7 Hail Marys with as much intention as possible." In those seconds, he insisted a mysterious exchange takes place. Worry trades place with hope, isolation with communion, and the petitioner stands in the light of God's providence, even as storms rage outside. As the world listened, his call cut through centuries, echoing in chapels, homes, and hearts around the globe. He closed by reaffirming that in every urgent trial, the 7 Hail Marys bring the soul alongside Mary at the foot of the cross, where the greatest suffering met the greatest love, and where all things are made new. Pope Leo's voice lingered in the minds of the faithful. Do not doubt, do not yield to discouragement, for prayer offered through Mary is always answered by God in the perfect manner and time.